This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey everybody, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Cliff Yates Show. And hey, we're back in the Florida studios, back here in the nice warmth of the Sunshine State, Florida. And we're glad to be here. And the studio is all set up. We got the lights going on. And as always, I'm glad you're here. And I just want to share a little bit of the information that I'm now learning. As I've shared before, I'm enrolled in the Primal Health Coach Institute out of Miami, Florida, founded by Mr. Mark Sisson, where I'm kind of resetting my body to be burning fat and ketones instead of into this carbohydrate, insulin, rock and roll system here that can burn out our pancreas and cause us to have diabetes, which is one of the major health issues going on specifically in America because of the standard American diet. We are chronically high in insulin, which causes the pancreas to keep putting insulin into our systems to bring down the glucose levels in our bloodstream. And when we're in a chronic state like that, the pancreas can get worn out and the cells say, I've had enough, I'm overwhelmed. And then your cells become insulin resistant, so that they say, close the doors. And we're not going to allow insulin, which is their basic function, is to bring nutrients and cell repairing processes into the cell. And so when we get insulin resistant, no longer is insulin functioning properly with getting rid of glucose in the bloodstream. That's how type 2 diabetes gets started in the simplest of forms that I can put it. But if we can get onto this ketogenic or get our body switched to, we're kind of getting metabolically flexible so that we burn fat, ketones, but also we can burn carbohydrate, but we're not overloading the system with carbohydrates so that we're chronically high in insulin. And so that's the title of this week's episode is, why is insulin considered the master hormone? And that's one of the learning cells that I have in the Primal Health Coach Institute. And I just want to share a little bit with you on that today because I don't want to get too much in the woods on the science of it. But basically the primal health kind of bedrock is so that we can learn how to get our body to burn fat, ketones, but we really want to modulate our carbohydrate intake, because carbohydrates get converted immediately into glucose, which is then either going to be absorbed into the cells when insulin is secreted by the pancreas, or the cells are overloaded and full and the liver and muscle is full, then that's going to be converted into triglycerides, fat in the blood system, and taken to and stored into fat cells and locked in there. And unless we're fat adapted, we're going to gain fat. And we don't want that for various reasons. And specifically, my family is predisposed to diabetes, many in my family, but not predetermined. And that's why through our lifestyle, we can forego the predetermination of diabetes. And so why is insulin considered the master hormone? And if you're watching on YouTube, you see I have a slide up here on the screen. And if you're listening, you're going to get it. And I'm not going to get too into the woods on this in this episode, but I did want to share this because this is kind of what I'm doing right now. So insulin is the master hormone because what it does, it functions to help the transport of nutrients and other hormones to target organs and storage depots in the body. When we have a rise in blood glucose, usually because we've taken in carbohydrates, the pancreas releases insulin. The body always wants to get to homeostasis. It always wants to get to a balance right away, right in this moment. So what it does when that rush of glucose comes in, it immediately throws insulin into the system to bring down those glucose levels, because it's been signaled that the glucose is high, and that can be very dangerous. So the body is doing what it's supposed to do and immediately bring us to homeostasis so that we're in balance so that we can survive right now. Now, many times that can be detrimental down the road in the long run, but the body always wants to immediately bring us to a balance so that we can survive. So, the amazing body is always doing the right thing in the specific moment, but for our long-term health, it may not be good. So, we have a rise in blood glucose because we've taken in carbohydrates and or sugar. The pancreas releases the insulin to moderate that glucose. High blood glucose, hyperglycemia, is dangerous, even deadly. So insulin is sent to help clear glucose out of the bloodstream and into tissues where it can be used for energy or it can be stored for later use. Excess glucose is converted into glycogen for storage in the liver and the muscle tissue. So when we have excess glucose, it's converted into glycogen, and then that's stored in the liver and muscle tissue for use later as energy. High insulin signals that there is plenty of energy available because insulin should only be high when there is plenty of glucose. Now, an effect is insulin inhibits lipolysis, the release of fatty acids from adipose tissue, right? Fat tissue around our midsection, our bellies. Because why would the body need to liberate energy from fat cells when there's already plenty of fuel available? At the same time, insulin inhibits gluconeogenesis in the liver so that blood glucose doesn't rise even higher. Now, these facts are the basis for the carbohydrate insulin model. Insulin is considered an anabolic hormone because it promotes growth and repair processes. A healthy level of insulin production allows liver, muscle, and fat cells to repair, regenerate, and store energy for future use. So it's a good thing. We need insulin in the system. But what we don't need is insulin in the system chronically. That's where we get into trouble, and the cells have too much. We're overloaded, and that's when they say we're not going to allow insulin anymore to bring anything else into the cells. And that's when we become resistant, and that's what we don't want, because then we're going to spiral in to diabetes if we go down that road. So a healthy level of insulin production allows liver, muscle, and fat cells to repair, regenerate, and store energy for future use. It also protects muscles against breakdown and helps with wound healing. So it protects us from having the body start to tear down muscle for use of energy. So once we get fat adapted, now the body is going to start burning fat as fuel instead of going and breaking down muscle. So we're going to be able to, when we get into this, when we get the body reset, and let's see how it works with me, when the body gets reset to burning fat as fuel, then we're going to be able to maintain our lean body mass and start burning our fat stores. So that's what we want to get to. Insulin is good, but too much is dangerous, as too little is dangerous. So there has to be a homeostasis there, a balance. If our bodies are in a chronic state of high insulin, and we're going to be in a high state of high insulin when every 2 hours we're pumping in the standard American diet, we're putting all these carbohydrates and these processed foods and these chemically altered seed oils into our system, we're going to be chronically high in insulin because the body is trying to bring down the glucose in the body as an act of survival so that we are in balance and homeostasis. So if our bodies are in chronic state of high insulin, then the cells become overwhelmed, and instead of opening the doors to cells for insulin to bring in nutrients, they shut the door, not allowing insulin to bring in the nutrients. And that is insulin resistance. They reject what insulin is trying to bring into the cell. Insulin resistance, we don't want that, so we want to get the body into insulin sensitivity. So we're going to get in how we can do that. Scientists many believe that this happens because a person reaches his or her personal fat threshold. This is the maximum amount of body fat that a person can store before it starts to cause the accumulation of intra-abdominal fat around the organs. And a person's personal body fat threshold, it differs from person to person. So when insulin is prevented from doing its job, clearing glucose out of the bloodstream, pancreatic cells work overtime to pump out more insulin to deal with this problem. Eventually, the pancreas wears out. It becomes so overwhelmed, it becomes exhausted, and that's when type 2 diabetes happens. A metabolic catch-22 happens. Excess carbohydrate consumption delivers excess glucose in the bloodstream, causing excess insulin production, which causes insulin resistance. First of all, when we exercise, that empties glycogen out of the system. And when we empty glycogen out of the system, that leaves room for insulin to now repopulate those cells with glycogen because of excess glucose in the bloodstream. So exercise is going to help us maintain our insulin sensitivity, which is what we're going to need to prevent diabetes and have all the good things happen in our cells so we can become more insulin resistant by getting plenty of sleep. Lack of sleep can be a big problem. Exercise, and what I've been doing is now I've created a reduction in my eating window. So a compressed eating window, or you could call it intermittent fasting. And I've been modeling what the founder does. I've been modeling Mark Sisson's compressed eating window, and he does an 16-8. So he basically eats from noon till 8 p.m., and then from 8 p.m. until noon, he does not eat. Now, in the morning, he has a big giant cup of coffee. So he basically has an eating window from noon until 8 p.m. and then from 8 p.m. until noon the next day, he is not eating, except in the morning he has a big giant cup of coffee, black coffee with some heavy cream, which is fat. And so you don't break the fast as far as ingesting carbohydrates, converting to glucose. So that doesn't happen because you're having a little bit of heavy cream in your coffee. And so this is what I've been doing, and I've been able to maintain that 16-8 balance of eating 12 to 8 and then fasting, or a compressed eating window from 12 to 8, then fasting from 8 p.m. until noon the next day. And I've also been able to incorporate fasting exercise workouts. So now before my eating window starts at noon, I'm actually hitting the gym at 9:30, 10 a.m., and I've had plenty of energy, indicating that I am now burning fat for energy, or glycogen that's been stored in the cells. And I think because I've been going long enough that I've depleted the glycogen, and now I'm actually burning the fat. So I'm not getting a crash, and plenty of energy for the workouts. And I think because I'm in that fat ketone producing mode and I have reset the body to that I'm maintaining my muscle mass. So we'll see how it goes in the ensuing weeks, but I'm only in about week 5 of this. Just to add some detail, because I'm going to go to my notes from my classes that I took here on the hormone insulin, specifically insulin sensitivity, because I think I have more specific notes here that are going to help us in modulating our insulin levels in the bloodstream. So the way that we can improve our insulin sensitivity, so our cells' ability to respond to insulin signaling is open to bring the nutrients into the cells. We can do that by moderating our carbohydrate intake. Exercise depletes, as I said before, exercise depletes glycogen stores in the muscle and liver so that insulin has somewhere to deposit energy. Aim for a mix of resistance training and full body high intensity workouts. Walk regularly, get enough sleep, eat magnesium rich foods and or supplements with magnesium. Get plenty of omega-3 fatty acids. And yes, meditate. That's one thing that I was missing when I went totally vegan, which helped all my numbers. All my numbers went down. Triglycerides went down to a real healthy level. Total cholesterol went down to a total healthy level. But what maintained almost to the unhealthy level was my glucose and the AC1, right? A1C. I was having so much pasta because I was getting away from the meat and dairy products, and I still don't do the dairy products, but I've introduced meat because of that healthy fat and protein, and meat, fish, eggs, and we're having nuts and seeds and healthy oils, not chemically altered vegetable oils. But as I was in the vegan mode, my blood work came back as low in the omega-3s. So my doctor said salmon is the best source of omega-3s. I don't really like salmon, but fish is really good. But fish is a great source of omega-3s, and so I've introduced a lot of fish, and so I'm happy about that. And so we're going to I'm looking forward to the next blood test to see how the numbers are going to look for specifically the glucose and A1C, now that I've hopefully reset my body to the fat and keto burning, and I'm moderating the amount of carbohydrate intake that I'm taking in. But if your body is metabolically flexible, you should be able to not only burn fat, ketones, also you should be able to burn carbohydrates efficiently because you're not overloading your system all the time. And by the compressed eating windows, we're allowing our cells to empty of glycogen and to say to themselves, hey, I'm going to repair. You know what? Nothing's coming in. What are we going to do? It's time to kind of do some repair work on ourselves. When cells are totally full all the time and they're constantly being barraged with a high carbohydrate food intake, then the cells say, hey, you know what? We got plenty. We're always going to have plenty. Every 2 hours we're getting, you know what? Let's divide. Let's divide and create. And so then your cells start to divide, and this leads to other bad things happening. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds now on this. I hope this, wasn't too much science. It almost is for me. But hormone, the master, insulin is the master hormone because all the great things it does, and we do not want to become insulin. We don't want to become insulin resistant. We want to become insulin sensitive. You know what? That's going to be it for this episode of the podcast. Why is insulin the master hormone? Hey, if you think this might help somebody and it might resonate with somebody you know, hey, share this with somebody that might need to hear it. And please, more stuff's coming up of what I'm learning at the Primal Health Coach Institute. And I'm going to share it with you, believe me, because we all need to get on a better train of health and wealth. And I am here to share what I learn so that we can all be better and get better day after day. Listen, if you're watching and or listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. I love a good positive comment, and it tells the computer, hey, people are interacting with the show. I'm going to show this to more people who like this type of content. Now, if you're listening on one of the podcast platforms, subscribe to the channel. I'm everywhere, right? We got iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify. Listen, subscribe to one of the podcast platforms. Listen in your car. Hey, when you get a chance, leave a comment, like it. Listen, you're awesome. I love you. More episodes to come. I'll see you in the next one.